All right, so let's get started here. We're talking about the macro market. Bitcoin's having a nice day today. Shockingly, Bitcoin had a very strong month of September. It was one of the best performing months of September in the history of Bitcoin. It was up, I think, like 7%. Uh, um, yeah, it's one of the best ones. Shocking, I know. You guys can't believe it. You're beside yourselves. But this Friday we have a good day so far this Friday. Middle of the week, the start of Uptober. I know people like to call it Uptober, but it started Downtober so far the first few days. Um, but ultimately Ethereum's kind of in the same position, just the drop was a bit more significant. We basically gave back 2 weeks worth of gains on Ethereum in 5 days. And the hope is that we get those back. We are actually in a position where we created a higher, mm, I think it was a higher high on Bitcoin. Yeah. So we created a higher high on Bitcoin from the end of August to the end of September. Traditionally, if you're into technical analysis, a higher high is usually a good indication that we're course correcting. We're reversing course when it comes to the overall momentum of the chart. I pointed out last week or 2 weeks ago, I drew this expanding wedge on the Bitcoin chart, weekly chart. And traditionally, if it's a descending expanding wedge or just a descending wedge, traditionally that breaks to the upside. So um, at some point, you would anticipate this to break up on a more macro sense. So timing wise, we talk about the market in general in these very large, long range macro cycles, right? About 4 year cycles. And so we're to the point now where we are we are right in the middle of what we would consider a bull market, but the bull market's not over yet. So um, our 4 year cycle would end middle last the third of 2025. So we had an abnormal year when it comes to the ETF. It pushed us up to a new all time high, but that new all time high was very small compared to the um, the previous all time high. Usually in a bear market, all time high is 200%, 300% higher than the previous all time high. This all time high was only, um, you know, I think 7% or 10% higher than the previous all time high, which makes us think from a historical standpoint that the market has yet to top out. However, as a market matures, its volatility decreases, right? So Bitcoin in its infancy was extremely volatile from the 2013 top to the 2017 top. It was a gain of like 1900%. And then from 2017 top to 2021 top, it was only a gain of like, I think 300%, something like that. And so my hypothesis, where's where's FIP at to say I wrote an article? My hypothesis was always that our next cycle's all-time high would be significantly reduced from that 300%. So we went from about 69 in 2021. So my guess in 2025 was right around 100,000. There's not an infinite amount of money. Yes, Federal Reserve and other governments can just continue to print money, but there's not an infinite amount of money in the space. Crypto is still a risk asset, although it's shifting a little bit, but it's still very much as a risk asset. You can see that from the past week because of the unrest in the Middle East, because of the port strike that didn't last very long, but it still like impacted the sentiment of the market. You could see significant downturn in the crypto market because of it. So the overall populace of investors still view crypto as very much a risk asset. So it's something that you kind of have to take into consideration. But at the end of the day, there's only a finite amount of money in the world. And so looking at Bitcoin's market cap and then the other altcoin market caps, there's only so much that can go into it theoretically, right? And so I see 100,000 as a very large psychological threshold that I think this bull market will live around 100,000 before we pull back and experience a bit of a new longer range mature bear market that probably doesn't dip nearly as far as previous bear markets. So previous bear markets, you're looking at negative 70 to negative 80% from the all-time high to the new low. My guess is given the institutional money involved, given the overall adoption, just comfortability from a generational sense, I do think if we do experience a 4-year cycle bear market like we have in previous cycles, the bottom wouldn't be nearly as devastating, you know. So I do think it's something where, like, if we top out, say 100, we might come back down to 50, something like that. You know, 40 to 50% pullback versus a 70 to 80% pullback. Fifth, I obviously have an inverted philosophy when it comes to black swan events. I think bear markets cause black swan events. I don't think black swan events cause bear markets. So if you look at Terra Luna, if you look at FTX, though that was bad leadership that was exposed by a bear market and thus resulted in its failure and then impacted the market. When the market was great, their bad leadership was masked by these truckloads of money being dumped in their pockets every day. And well, everybody can look like a great leader when everything is, you know, going up. So I do have an inverted logic when it comes to black swan events and bear markets. That's kind of how we're feeling with the market overall. I got a couple DMs. Michael's stuck in the car. His Tesla died. He has no power, and he's sitting on the side of the freeway. And some homeless guy is smearing feces on his windshield. If he's listening, he can't rebuttal everything I just said. Although he does say the homeless guy is attractive, and he would like to exchange numbers with him. All right. I know, what a loser. So anyway, we have this descending, expanding wedge. And if you were to look at the MACD, you know, all things are lining up for a potential breakout of this consolidation over the last 6 months. So we'll see what the next quarter looks like. So Q4 2024, we always anticipated would be the next leg. What that looks like and how it turns out, you know, we'll see. But my anticipation is Q4 should be a strong green quarter for the overall market. Does that mean we get to 75, 80, 85? Potentially. I would like to see us just retest the all-time high, which is, I think, 73.7. You know, so that's something to keep in mind. When it comes to Ethereum, this is something that I always show to you guys every time we do one of these, is this triangle on the Ethereum Bitcoin. Hold on. On the Ethereum Bitcoin chart. Like I said, I drew this triangle 2 years ago, and it's been just meandering along this whole time. So we are getting ready to potentially touch this bottom line, which would be technically the fourth time. If you don't count this, it's the third time. Actually, if you don't count this, it will be the third touch. The hope is, in everything that's going on with mass adoption, Bitcoin being digital gold, and then smart contracts, potentially Ethereum or L2s being the day-to-day transactional activity. The hope is that Ethereum breaks out of this triangle to the upside. Now, how far that goes and what that means, it depends, but I would like to see Ethereum nearing its previous all-time high. It never even got close this cycle so far. So previous all-time high was like 4,800. It got to 4,100. So it missed its all-time high by more than 15%, versus Bitcoin breached its all-time high by about 10%. So there is a distinct disparity there that I think Ethereum eventually will close that gap, but what that looks like and how severe it is remains to be seen. Other thing that we were looking at was Block. I know people are like, man, Block's still only 1 penny. I was like, yeah, I know. Well, we are paired to ETH. So I have this conversation with people all the time. Like we have, like since, when is this? You can do anywhere, just July. From July forward, we are price-wise of Block is down, well, let's say, yeah, it's July 1st right here. July 1st to now, the price of Block is down 20%. However, if you look at Block's ETH price from July 1st, where's July 1st? Right here. Its ETH price is up 15%. So there's a 35% price variance from July 1st to now between ETH, our Block's ETH price and Block's fiat price. Only so much you can do about that. So we are moving in the right direction. We are burning supply. We are still pumping out rewards for you guys every day. It's just a matter of when the market turns, the fiat price of Block will turn. But at the end of the day, within what we can control, everything's going perfectly fine. It's just a matter of, letting it do its job. Not only are we up against ETH, if you're staking and farming, you're up there too. That's true. Yeah. So staking and farming has been sitting at, well, Fiery Dev had to use his ETH half of his farms for something to do with F-Bomb. So he let me know that he was going to pull his farms down, but he didn't sell any Block. I honestly don't think he'll ever sell any Block. He's just one of those guys, and he's a huge supporter of ours. So the farm APY jumped to 50%. So if anyone's farming, you're getting APY 50% right now. And if you're using your dynamic strategies and you're taking profit, you could set your take profit to 100%. And if 50% holds for the year, you're going to have an ROI of 50% after a year. And then single staking is right around 16, 17%. It's not bad for a native token with no extra liability attached to it, like farming with a impermanent loss, etc. So if you've been with us this whole time, you've garnered significant rewards compared to what you would in TradFi. And then if you're holding an NFT, I was just going to mention the NFTs, Phip. The NFTs, 62% true ROI in the first year. And then we're on pace for almost 60% ROI this year for the NFTs. So if you minted one, as of right now, you're at like a almost 70% ROI on your NFTs, not counting its resale value, not counting the fact that our mechanics are constantly feeding the NFT contract as it decays, which lengthens the value of the NFT. And then as we destroy supply separate from the NFT contract, value will eventually grow into it. So yeah, there's a lot of good things about what we're doing right now. It's just we have to talk about the client side, right? So as we move into the September report, the end of month report, we do this every time. The big thing for us is, we talked about the macro market. Great September, right? It surprised us. We got to see a 6-7% green September, which rarely happens for Bitcoin. I think it's only the third green September in 14 years that Bitcoin has had. So generally, that is an outlier. That's great because it almost always happens during a bull market. So if you look back at the previous green Septembers, if I remember correctly, each one of them happened leading into explosive growth for, that's what she said, for Bitcoin going into Q4 and then into the following year. So that is usually a good sign for us that we're heading in the right direction. The DeFi Fund, some of the positions did move back into range. So we got to benefit from a good chunk of revenue from 3 or 4 of our DLP positions. A lot of the other ones moved closer to being back in range. They just didn't quite make it there yet. So, which is fine. We're playing the long game. We're being patient with all that. We talked a bit about the ETH ETF. Talk about a disappointment. My Lord, did we overestimate what kind of impact that would have? To be fair, the ETH ETF did launch at the end of July. August and September are traditionally really hard months for the market. And so there was a seed of doubt that the impact of the ETH ETF would take a little longer, but never in our wildest dreams did we imagine ETH being just an absolute dog of a performer, even though the ETH ETF was finally trading. It's been super disappointing. However, I think there's extenuating circumstances for that disappointment. And, we talked about crypto being a risk asset, and with all the domestic and international turmoil that's going on right now, like between Ukraine and Russia, the Middle East, strikes here in the United States, the U.S. elections coming up, the Fed, whether or not they're going to cut any more rates this year or wait until next year. There's so much uncertainty, and with crypto being a risk asset, it does suppress some of its value opportunities, which, it happens. So, realistically, it might not be until January you see real confidence return to the market, but I think Q4 will still have a net green outcome when it comes to the market overall. Client side, everybody wants to know about the client side. I'm right there with you. I want to know about the client side. No, I'm just kidding. So we have our client contracts, the same ones that we had intact last month. They're still intact now. It's just been a waiting game. It's been an extremely frustrating waiting game, but it's a waiting game nonetheless. So one of our 4 contracts, actually 2 of our 4 contracts, they're connected because they're business partners, but they're each individually using our services for their capital. One of them has spent the last year trying to move funds from the United States to Panama, and they very, very stubborn. I don't know if anybody knows any wealthy people, but depending on the type of wealth, they can be pretty stubborn. You get fed one story and then you learn more and more context of the situation and come to find out that this person has been trying to solve this cross-border release of funds on their own for almost a year. Well, we got to the point where we finally got enough information from the client and the client's lawyer that we now understand the full scope of their issue, and we can actually solve it pretty easily. So because that specific client's funds are in the United States, one of our partners in Panama has business brokerage accounts in the United States. So they can transfer their funds to our partner's brokerage account, and then it can be moved internally to their account, our accounts, our partner's account in Panama, because it's an internal business transaction. So it falls under much less scrutiny. If it's internal business movement of funds, it's a much easier way to move funds cross-border. And so, unfortunately, it took almost a year for this person to give us the full context of what's happening with their specific funds. Frustrating. However, now that we actually know what the problem is, we can solve the problem. So, but you do get fed partial information week after week after week, and you don't want to push them because they're the client and you're just the service provider. So you don't want to push them too much. You don't want to pressure them too much. So you kind of just need to pull little details as you move along, and all of a sudden you kind of get the full picture, and you're like, oh, this is the issue. We can actually solve this issue. So that's kind of where we're at now. That those two clients in particular, we're looking at probably a little over 200,000 in client revenue from those two clients. So a significant sum of funds for us from a revenue standpoint. Definitely worth continuing and problem solving that. And I think we're to the point now where we can get it resolved. So if anybody's listening, I'm pretty sure we're going to have a good update next week. Viking said rich people may sometimes be very annoying. No. So, Carl, the Monday thing was this particular account. So, again, they came to us and said, hey, we're probably going to be ready to go on Monday. Again, they didn't have all the information. They weren't giving us all the information. So, now that we have what it is now is we have a hand in the process. So, we've been able to get power of attorney signed over to partner. So, our partner can actually have direct conversations with their brokerage firm into his brokerage firm and then into our organizational accounts. So that is the most of the update that I can give when it comes to that situation. But again, we're talking low to mid six figures in client revenue from these accounts. So it is definitely worth our time to be patient, but also resolve it. And so we're finally now to the point where I think we have a strategy in place to resolve it quickly. It's just a matter of, unfortunately, one thing that Barry and I have gotten to see over the last few months, particularly with a lot of financial institutions, a lot of them are just people making all of these decisions. And sometimes those decisions aren't rational. Sometimes they're selfish. Sometimes they're short-sighted. Sometimes they just want to be taken care of. And you have to navigate all of these like very human moments, despite the fact that your business has nothing to do with them. And so we have gotten to the point now where you have to play this like very strategic game of politics with certain people, and because we've been interacting with certain bank executives in Panama, certain fund managers, but then all of a sudden you can have some mid-level just bank employee hit pause on an account for some obscure reason, whether they, it's suspicious to them or power trip, whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden everything's delayed and you have to navigate. And so we've been finding ourselves in a situation where we're learning more and more about the inner workings of some of these financial institutions, especially in Latin America. And so we're getting to the point now where it's like we kind of know how the game is played, but we are getting to the point where we just want to get something done. Like, I'm frustrated and impatient. Barry's frustrated and impatient. We've put a lot of time and effort into this whole process into the client services. I've spent 18 months not getting paid and not recovering my bill costs because I've been committed to the long-term success of this organization. And so we're all kind of getting to the point now where we're like, okay, it's time to make some money. Like, I would love to be able to pay myself something a little bit. I would love to be able to push revenue back into the DeFi fund as proof positive to you guys that this is real and this is happening. And ultimately just kind of get to the point of of feeling like we are wheels up, you know what I mean? Like it would be a nice situation where we can have just consistent revenue coming in because the dam broke and the first one went, that sort of thing. So 3 to 6 more months of ramen it is. Maybe just next week. Who knows? At the end of the day, it's just going to be next week. Yeah, Phip, I mean, I could have been like, I know Barry's been collecting a very small salary and Michael and Ian have been getting a very small salary this entire time. Barry's got two girls at home, and you know wants to take care of his family. Me, I have a very loving and understanding wife. I had plenty of savings saved up from the houses that we flipped with my family over the past few years, plus the previous bull market. And so, but I am to the point now where at some point it would be nice to reap some of the benefits of the work we've done. But I want to make sure that we have we have cash in hand before we do that. I don't want to borrow from Peter to pay Paul or steal from Peter to pay Paul, that sort of thing. So yes, Viking, thank you. I have a very loving, cute, and not morbidly obese wife. So if anyone's listening, who cares? She is healthy. She's a healthy person. All right, moving on. Revenue generation. We actually generated a decent amount of revenue last month because of the things coming back in range. Obviously, this number is going to be super small because everything was out of range. We talked about that. We've talked about that for a couple months now. This shouldn't come as a surprise. However, like I said, these contracts coming up, I do anticipate, a couple hundred grand, somewhere in that range for the next 2 quarters. If we break that, happy days, but that's kind of generally what we're anticipating. But we also have other opportunities that going into the new year. One thing that I was kind of disappointed about with some of the stuff that we have going in Panama is we were promised some other things, not connected to these contracts. The client contracts are what they are, signed and committed. We're good there. But we were promised verbally some other things from friends within the new government. The new government took over in July, and that unfortunately haven't come to fruition yet, even though we were told they would. However, the thought process is, and kind of the secondhand information we have been given is that first 6 months when a new government takes over, so they're in office for 5 years. So that first 6 months, everybody is like heads down, getting to know their job, getting to know what needs to be done, what needs to be focused on. And so there's not a lot of room for additional like objectives or opportunities. So basically we were told, hey, give them until through the new year, let them get settled into their positions. Let's let everything work itself out for the new administration. And then coming into next year, some of those things we discussed we'll definitely be revisiting. So I know through conversations that we've had with people connected to the president, they're very interested in turning Panama into like the Dubai of Central America. They think they have a superior culture when it comes to how laid back it is, the Pura Vida lifestyle, the tropical lifestyle, and then you could pair it with like a free zone for crypto, kind of like Dubai has, along with friendly regulatory frameworks within the government itself. The government, from our conversations, for those who are close to the president, they're very much interested in turning Panama into like crypto land of the Americas. And I know El Salvador's currently kind of got that title, but Panama thinks that they have the traditional finance structure in place to bridge that into crypto. And the good news is the friends that we have in place around the country, they're always constantly keeping us in mind. So we do get messages saying, hey, we're going to have a handful of investors and we're going to be meeting this weekend. BlockCentral is coming up. We got it on the agenda to talk about. And so a lot of those conversations are happening that we're just planting seeds at the moment. And that's really exciting for us. Is she very beautiful like me? No, she's not as beautiful as you, lady. You're top tier. You're the top 1%. Total revenue, yeah, it's right about 360,000. It's $1,000 a day for a year. We've been around for longer than a year, but you know what I mean. 360,000 in revenue. Supply burn. We are at 6.37. Actually, where are we actually at? Who's got the number? Can I get it first? We are at, nope, the bot is dead. Never mind. Actually, I can look at. Hold on. Hold, please. I can look at here. We are at almost 6.5 million in tokens burned. I do love our mechanics. 45% of all the tokens that go into the tax contracts get destroyed instantly, which I'm okay with. I remember a few months ago, a few months ago, when we merged, circulating supply was north of 60 million. So the fact that this number continues to creep down, 56 million circulating supply, despite the NFT contract is decaying at a specific rate each week, the fact that we're at 5.6 circulating supply makes me happy. Fund diversification, you guys see this every time, the numbers. The ones that came back into range were the Pendle CLP came back into range. The ETH op one came back into range, but the big ones were Carrot and Miria. Carrot and Miria both came back into range. They both earned almost $1,500 in revenue. That was only like a week's worth of performance, actually. If they were in range the whole month, we probably would have seen significant ROI on those. But again, I do think the market's turning into a more favorable circumstance. So I think that will improve. Yeah. DeFi fund allocations, same as last time, 50 to 60% on the client side. As you guys know, we're fully committed to that. That's where our attention goes. That's where our focus goes. And but again, when that revenue comes in, it's going straight back into pulling that number on the balance sheet back to the DeFi fund. So that client number will decrease, and these position numbers, either new positions or existing positions, will begin to increase. So you will eventually see a balancing or rebalancing of the DeFi fund allocations to the point where the client side will actually disappear, because then we will have fully accounted for the client side in all regards, and it'll just be back to a fully on-chain DeFi fund, which is what we want, which we started with, and now it's what we want to bring it back to once the client side is fully realized from a dollars and cents standpoint. Look at you guys. So supportive. It's almost like you're fishing for free block when I do my giveaway. DeFi fund operational assets, it's usually just a rundown of what's in the wallet that's not in CLP positions or staking. So that changed by a total of $60, even though it's $3,000. DeFi fund metrics, we had a good positive month in DeFi fund, despite the buybacks and despite the small salaries for the rest of the team. We were still up almost $8,000 on the DeFi fund P&L for the month, which is good. And I think the entire protocol was up up 14,000 for the month, despite the expenses. So, which is good for us. Positive movement, right direction. Protocol metrics, most important ones to keep track of. Fully diluted market cap changed by $10,000, roughly the same. The liquidity, number 9 and 10 LP to circulating market cap and backing LP, 36 and 18%. Dropped a little bit, but we talked about Fiery pulling out of the farms, but everyone who's in the farms making more returns. Yep, because you can see here, single staking APY from last month was 17.08. Now it's 16.9, so marginal difference at most. But the farming APY jumped almost 10% because of that reduction in the farm. So if you are farming, you are getting more rewards. You can thank Fiery for that. And then token supply, we already talked about this. We burned about 740,000 tokens last month. That's pretty close to like just standard operating procedure. Nothing extraordinary happened last month when it came to token burns. So if that's just our baseline every month, 700, 800,000 tokens a month, it's going to eat the supply pretty significantly over a longer period of time. So 6.56% of the tokens burned. And then buybacks, we did about $9,000 in buybacks last month, which was 964,000. One of the few times, thanks to the market, that our average buyback price per token was under a penny. So I think it's one of the few times we actually seen that happen. Again, thanks to Ethereum, like we actually hit a point like back when back when we were at our post merger highs here, we're at 1.4 cents, 1.5 cents. We were doing similar buybacks, but the average per price was significantly higher because the price was higher. But thanks to Ethereum, even though we're at those highs again here, our average price per token buyback is under a penny. So it's the same ETH price, but the average price for block buyback is under a penny now versus back in May, June, we were spending 1.5 cents per block in buybacks, but the ETH price is the same. So what am I going to do? I can't do anything about that. All we can do is just keep pumping away at the supply. Anyway, that's it for the report. I know it's super exciting. Ian put Eldrita. Ian, help me with the name. I'm forgetting. It's our demigod of burning tokens. So it's our fire demigod. She's amazing. She helps us burn tokens. Also, we lost Phip, help me out. We lost a someone redeemed another token. Someone redeemed another NFT earlier in the month. Not only did they redeem the NFT instead of selling it, which they probably would have made more money if they sold it. It was a Valkyrie's Vanguard that they redeemed. How dare they? Anyway, I'm over it. I'm not holding on to that, That's it for the monthly report. If anybody is interested, we are playing the NFL Pick'em each week for those American friends. Actually, you know what? You don't even need to be American. You want to know why? Because Ian, who does our marketing and designs and etc., in the UK, doesn't know anything about the NFL. He won 2 weeks ago. So he won like, I don't know, 40, $50 in block. He doesn't know anything about it. And then Sunfire last week did an inverse index of my picks, and he almost won. So it tells you how good I am, and I love football, and I played football, and I obsess over it. So, and also, if you get last place, you get your money back. So either way, you can participate. But that's it for the monthly report. I would love to stick around and chit chat with you guys some more. However, I have to go unpack more shit. He actually did it. Yes, Kyle. He actually did it, and he got tied for third. And the only reason he didn't get second is because he lost the tiebreaker, which means I'm very bad at picking winners for NFL games, despite the fact that I've played that game my whole life. I watch it every year, college and pros, and you'd think I would know something, get it at least remotely correct, but no. And then Ian did burn his winnings, which more power to him. I wouldn't have done that. I would have kept them. More power to him. But Ian, not knowing anything about the NFL, went 9-1. He almost had a perfect week. Just some Brit sitting in his house over in. He's not in Manchester. He's somewhere in London. Somewhere in London, sitting in his house, destroying all the Americans in NFL Pick'em. It was drinking bourbon, yelling at his wife, telling his kids to go outside. That sort of thing. Very American over there. I don't know what it is. All right. Anyways, that's it for this week's weekly update. I'm going to do some giveaways. I'm going to do 3 $10 giveaways. I'm only going to give them to the people who sucked up the most while I was talking. So let me scroll through and find the most flattering comments in the chat. Well, FIP is definitely going to win one of these. So FIP, you're winning $10 in block because you said that you guys pay yourselves too, and I appreciate that. So I'm going to pay you $10 in free block. uh, Lady Z Lady, I appreciate you standing up for your own looks when I was talking about my wife. So you're going to win $10 in a free block. And we're going to go with, last but not least, I'm having a hard time picking. I'm going to go with paintball because paintball is here. Paintball, last one. That's it. That's all I got. If you have any more questions, you're always free to ping me, open a ticket. If you're friends with me on Discord, you can send me a DM. If we're not friends, open a ticket because I don't want to be your friend on Facebook or Discord. Oh my God. I got to get off here. I need to go unpack. Everybody, have a good week. I promise, I can't promise you because then I would be lying. I am very confident next week is going to be a good week for us. And if not next week, certainly the week after next week. Mark my words. We're going to make it happen. Other than that, I appreciate everybody being here. Congrats to the giveaway winners. Yeah, I know, Sulazaki. Please next week. I am more motivated than anyone that next week is the week, but we'll go from there. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. If you like the NFL or want to win some block, hit up the NFL football chat. Other than that, hasta luego.